We can argue the truth of our religion with even an atheist, the most infidels of infidels.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've taken my gloves off to box the Quran, to show you the human fingerprints on one of the most valued sacred books in the entirety of the human population, the fastest growing religion currently on planet Earth. That is not because it's truer. They are breeding much faster. They are coercing people in their society to follow along the path, whereas in Christian societies, or predominantly societies that are Christian, people can apostatize and they won't have their heads cut off. People are allowed to wear, exposing their skin. In a lot of Islamic countries, that is not allowed. So it's almost systematically set up for the next generation to be Muslim. And if they're not Muslim, they pretend to be for fear. And I get it. So I have Dr. Richard Carrier with me. Dr. Carrier, I figured this is a good suited kind of video with you because you and Dan Barker
Actually done this, yeah.
yeah. Well, you didn't just do like a deep dive and study this stuff. And it's probably been a long time since you've dwelt on the Quran. It's outside of the area you're typically right.
In fact, I actually avoid the Quran mostly for particular reasons we'll get into. I don't think you need to even tackle the Quran to rebut Islam.
Okay.
Nevertheless, tackling the Quran is worthwhile. Yeah. So definitely, but it just has to be done correctly, done carefully. And
yeah, you got to be careful because you make.
Well, it's the same. It's all the same problems with the Bible, right? Like if you're just going to amateurishly charge in against the Bible, what is the Christian apologist going to do? Oh, you don't know the Greek, you don't know the Hebrew, right? Like it's the same pitfalls, and so you have to have this. We have the advantage in the Western cultures of deep seeped experience with the Bible and what Christians claim about it, so you can be caught off kilter if you're gonna charge at the Quran. So you gotta be ready. You gotta have your ducks in a row.
The other thing is like if they can find, like I did a video, right? This guy Dean Responds, he'll probably see this video. When I brought up a position that most of my critical early Islamic scholars think is bogus. And it's this idea that a lot of the Quran is actually like a spin-off Arabic of actually Syriac, and or the Quran was produced in the north, or Petra was the original place. Like there's these different positions, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just throwing spaghetti at the wall, and I'm literally saying the true origins of Islam is the name of the title of the video, right? And I give several different positions, it's not like one. Well, he finds this one that clearly in another video I had a scholar I asked, and he goes, it's bogus. Therefore, I'm a liar, and it's like, no, actually,
I was just describing the fact that there are these theories that exist. Not even picking one. Yeah,
I even say it's a fringe position. I say, look, this is not majority at all.
Yeah, but that's triggering, right? That's triggering.
Well, they can't think I guess oftentimes they don't get my adventure into this isn't the only through a traditional route. They have theirs. I could take 10 different routes and think of this in flexible ways and throw different things at the wall and see. So for me, the true origins of Islam, I don't think there's any way to know absolutely what ultimately happened. There's different
and getting different Islamic ex-Muslim activists on your show to talk about these things is the best way to diffuse all this. You say, look, I'm saying these things, I've got these experts coming in. I'm not on my own. I'm not just some rando on the internet doing this. And you do the same thing when you're quoting and citing actual scholar. That's you're not just sitting in the armchair just making shit up, shooting shit, right?
No, and I again, I don't agree with every position that I'm actually presenting either. There are times where I'm actually, but I think the point was the title, the true origins. If it was you said that, I'm like, dude, we all play the YouTube game anyway. We all do that to get you to play because it's how it works. But in the video, you have different views you get to hear. I say that to say, back in the early 2000s, you and Dan Barker did a daring thing, and you went in actually into a predominantly Muslim auditorium.
Do you want to hear the story?
Yeah, tell me the story about that.
So, I should preface this by the fact that I often get people, especially Islamophobes, but a lot of people come as in, you never criticize Islam. And it's actually, I do. I have a lot of articles on this. And so my ultimate article is, I have a primer on Islam on my blog. So people can go there, and it links to all my stuff. It links to a bunch of other stuff. It's based on my firsthand experience debating Muslims and stuff. So I definitely have written on Islam. It's not salient to me because my society is not being controlled by Muslims. Congress is not voting for Allah, right? Like that's the problem I'm dealing with is much nearer and more serious, right? So anyway, that's why, and what I've written on Islam is the other thing is like, it's sufficient, honestly, like, because Islamic apologetics is so naive, it's so backwards and so naive that you don't really need to belabor it, right? Like once you've got a refutation, you're just done, right? Like you don't need to keep going at it. But it's still worth doing, like you're doing, like but me personally, I don't think I need to say anymore. And another version of this is I was another point to make about this. I was at a party, some party in San Francisco. And it was a party it was a very atheist heavy party. Like there's a lot of like atheist activists and things there. And I was in an argument with someone. Argument is the wrong word. Like I had this falling out with this other guy, and we were basically reconciling, right? We were like catching up and saying like, oh, okay. Like he'd said a bunch of shit. I'd said a bunch of shit, and we're like coming to terms and say, yeah, okay, that's how we can be buds again or whatever. So anyway, we're having this conversation, and his wife, who is this Palestinian woman, and so she's in the conversation, right? She's just there, and she pauses and she interrupts us. Says, "Wait a minute, wait a minute." It's like, "You're Richard Carrier?" And I'm like, "Yeah. What? Who do you think that is?" Right? Like, yeah. Like, what do you mean? And she's like, "You deconverted me from Islam," and I'm like, "I did." So she says, so her story was that she was in Saudi Arabia. So she was Palestinian. I think she was sold-ish into wifery in Saudi Arabia. Like, I don't know, like how literally, but nonetheless, she ended up stuck as one of many wives to someone in Saudi Arabia. And she says, like, okay, so first of all, it's so arduous as a woman to go out because you have to like cover everything. It's just a pain in the ass. And you're not allowed to, back then, you're not allowed to drive. So like, why would you even go out? Like you just stay in, right? Yeah. And what do? Like the man is away doing whatever he does, and you're, in the house all day long. What the fuck do you do? Like you surf the internet, right?
Yeah.
And she said, so what she said is like, and they in Saudi Arabia, they block all the anti-Islam sites, but they don't block all the anti-Christian stuff. And she said, this is like almost verbatim, like an argument against God is an argument against God. Right. So she's like reading all my anti-Christian stuff, and she's like, this is fucking bullshit. And basically, and she eventually like figured out a way to kind of like trick her husband into sending her to school in Canada, and then she defected literally, and then she ended up, now I think she's a lawyer somewhere in America. Ugh. So yeah, so anyway, this whole trajectory was inadvertently unknown to me, caused by the fact that I published my stuff on the internet. And this is so long ago, tons of long ago. But this hit me really hard, and I was thinking like, I'm having a global impact. Like how many other people have that story? And if it's not me, other people who are doing anti-Christian, anti-God stuff that's really well argued, it's affecting Muslims, right? Because like she said, an argument against God is an argument against God. You don't even have to be specific to Islam.
Yeah, for them to see the consistency of it applying to their comments.
In my primer, I actually talk about how Islam does have some peculiar versions of arguments for God, but they're not particularly great. But there are things you should be familiar with if you're going to argue with a Muslim, right? Yeah. And the reason I know this is because I've done it.
Yes, so let's get go to that story.
Yeah. So this story starts when I attended a debate between Hassanein Rajabali and Dan Barker at a mosque, right? So, and this was, I don't remember, like 01. Was it 01? No, it can't have been 01.
You said 03 the other day.
Well, 03 is the debate we did. I'm trying to think of when this debate, it must have been 02. Because it was after 9/11, right? So like you had 9/11, and this created a crisis for Muslim communities in America because they're like, oh shit, now everybody thinks we're fucking mass murderers, right? So they have a PR issue they want to solve. Yeah. The thing like, look, we want to have like the Tawhid Institute in Dearborn, Michigan. Everybody who knows Dearborn, Michigan is like,
it's like
the capital Muslims in the U.S. Yeah. And so they wanted to organize this thing and say like, look, it was them and the Young Muslims Association, which is the YMCA except for Muslims. And so they said, we want to organize this debate to show and make it very public, right? To show that like we can argue the truth of our religion with even an atheist, the most infidels of infidels, and not chop off their heads, right? Like, just not kill each other, right? Like, just to show that, like, no, look, we're not head choppers, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I could get behind that. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I get that, and that's cool. And so they organized this huge debate. First, I went to this little debate with Barker and Rajabali, and it was in a mosque. I had the experience right in a mosque. You have to have, men and women have to sit on separate sides, right? It's very segregated. And it was a little thing, and I wrote an article about it, right? I was like, yeah, here's the dumb shit that happened at this thing. And Rajabali and the organization said, we want you, like, we read your article about the Barker debate. We want to have Barker and you debate Hassanin Rajabali and Michael Corey, this other guy. We're going to have a team debate, 2-on-2, right? And they'll invite the Muslim community from all over the world. Well, it'll be televised and all this stuff. All right, cool. And so this is 03. So now we're in 03, right?
Okay.
And so we're doing this thing. And so they flew us out and they put us up at a hotel and they did all of the things that you would expect kind of like a diplomatic mission to do. Like they assigned us some people, had them take us around to meet a lot of different Muslims because they're trying to like just meet us to get us to know us, right? Like so that you don't have like the media's version of us. You get us, like you talk to us. And that was super valuable. And they had it was about 1,000 Muslims showed up. It was more like there were like maybe 100 Christians and like 10 atheists, right? Like it was like the audience was massive, so big that they had to have the hotel had to have overflow rooms with closed circuit TV for people to watch the debate. Like there was more people than the entire grand ballroom that could fill. Like it was a massive attendance. And they'd flown people in. Like people had come in from all over the world, like Tanzania, Syria, like Egypt, like everything, like flying in to do this debate, which meant that because of when I arrived and got to talk to a bunch of people, I got to meet a lot of these people. So I got to one of my handlers who drove me around was from Syria, like literally came in from Syria. I was like, shit, like normally you get the perspective of the media or whatever, like filtered. Like I'm sitting in a car with a fucking Muslim Syrian right now, like, what do I want to know from them? Like, what questions do I have? And so I'm asking them like things like, what do you think about America? And this is, we love your culture. We hate your foreign policy. It's like those kind of conversations. Like, yeah, that makes sense. Right. And they're talking about like how movies are really popular. American movies are really popular there, which tells me that that's our little poison pill. Like that's our culture gets in through our movies. Right. So that's why movies matter. Like what kind of values are we showing in our movies? Because they're watching them. It matters. So anyway, so I had a lot of great conversations, and another one of my handlers was a woman who ran a factory in Dearborn, very devout Muslim woman. So she's wearing hijab and the whole thing, and so I got to have conversations with her. It's like, what do you think about being a woman in Islam and all of that stuff? And like everybody's like giving their story of how it's great, it's wonderful, yada yada. But I'm still getting their perspective, and it is true. Like it matters that she was in charge of men. So like this is the Muslim community is not so anti-woman. They would never in America. They would never appoint a woman as a manager. Anyway, so I'm getting all these perspectives while at the same time we have things like dinners have to be gender segregated. And I'm like, okay, you just shot yourself in the foot. Like everything
that started to me at Israel. And we went to Israel. I met with Rabbi Tovia Singer.
Right.
We went down to the wall, and Rabbi told my you have to go to that side.
That's right.
My wife was pissed. And then not only that, we get to the bedroom, and they have 2 beds. So we're a couple. We sleep, right?
Yeah.
They have 2 beds that you're supposed to push apart when it's her time of the month, and she's not allowed to sleep in the same bed. And that goes for anyone. And it's like, hell no.
Yeah, right.
She's sleeping with me. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. So there was a lot of segregation. They even at the hotel wanted segregation. So in the ballroom, it was gender divided.
Got it.
And there was a trans woman that was confusing them in terms of where she was supposed to sit, and that became an issue. But it was very interesting, like how they dealt with that. Like, I didn't approve of any of this, right? Like, but it's it's their game, right? Like, we'll do the thing, and also at the same point, like, you're just advertising to me that your values are backwards. So like, this is kind of an own goal. Like, you're already losing the debate the moment you do this, right? And anyway, so that Barker and I decided in advance of the debate that he would be bad cop and I would be good cop, which means that he would attack the religion of Islam, like, and attack God as a concept. I would take the positive view of arguing for naturalism. Like naturalism is a better explanation than God. And so it was interesting that we took those two positions. We decided in advance we would both focus on those two things. And that was our wheelhouse too. Like he was really good at the anti-God stuff, and I was really good at the pro-naturalism stuff. And so, but afterwards we had people come up to us. It's so funny because we conferred later. Like both of us had people come up to us and say, you know what? I hated the fucking other guy. I loved how the way you approached it. It was whatever. Like, and so it's just funny that we hit both markets, right? Like this. So it's the best way to do it. So you have both the hostile and the defensive, like the positive version. Anyway, so we had this debate, and it was 5 hours or something. You could find it online. It's like multiple YouTube shows because it's so freaking long. And opens with like a Muslim prayer and like the whole thing. And I don't remember if on the video they have there's a moment, I think it wasn't televised, it was audio. So the audio went out through various like internet and channels and stuff.
Yeah.
So that like my wife at the time was listening, and so all she could hear was the audio, and you can't tell what's going on really. And so there was kind of like a kerfuffle about something going on in the audience. And of course, it was 2003. Everybody's like, oh my God, there's a bomber or whatever. Like, and because I can't like, I don't know, I can't talk to her or anything like that. I'm up on the thing. So I didn't know until after when she said like, yeah, I started to get a little panicky when there's that kerfuffle or whatever. It was just some like seating issue thing. Like it wasn't a big deal, or someone who was standing up wanting to make a protest or whatever. And there's no threat of violence or anything like that. And it wasn't even a Muslim that was causing the problem. So it wasn't even, right. Yeah. So anyway, so we did that, and we did this debate, and it was interesting how Hasnain Rajabali was super nice. Since then, I've had 20 years of experience with debates with Christians and various people. Hundreds of debates I've done, right? And so this is not surprising in hindsight, but at the time, like, he was super nice. But on the podium, he's a fucking dick. Like, you're like, what an asshole. Like, what the shit you're pulling? Like, I can't even.
It's for show.
Right, yeah, right, exactly. It's a fire, like, fuck the atheist kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, that's how it's going to be.
Yeah. I'll tell you the famous clip. I never watched the debate. I came across one of the clips.
Well, it's hard to watch because it's fucking 5 hours long.
Not only that, though, the guy's like really emotionally.
Oh, yeah. No, he's fire and brimstone, like, version of that kind of preacher.
Extreme.
Yeah.
Then you would calmly correct him after that. And they're all like, yes. And then all of a sudden you'd be like, actually 1,000 years before my Thales already said that life came from water. And I was like, mic drop. I mean,
that happened a lot in that debate. Yeah, so that was an example of where it matters that you know how to debate. Like when you go in, it's like, okay, yeah, being calm is important, right? And then figuring out, like, being able to walk past all the, like, triggering bullshit. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's a lot of bait.
Yeah.
A lot of raw bait they're throwing out. Like, just gotta sift through that and find the one thing, like, the bullshit thing that you can call them out on, and then get it. And so that's what I did. And I did that repeatedly throughout the debate. So it's definitely a win for our side. Like, you count Barker and me, like, it was a slaughter, really, in terms of the debate quality. Well, there were some of the dumbest arguments in that debate. I can't even, about the volcano, like the whole idea of, like, of course we have to have volcanoes that melt entire villages and kill tons of people because God needs to circulate the elements around the earth. And like, this is like some Scopes monkey trial shit. Like, I was like, that is the dumbest argument ever. And I do think I make the point. It's like, well, I mean, God is God. He doesn't need to melt people to move elements around. He could just do it.
Yeah, I think, did they try to bring in the scientific miracle crap?
Yeah, you mentioned the water thing. So they're talking about the Quran.
Already, like, knew shit.
Presciently knew the things it couldn't have known about science.
Nonsense.
Yeah, we totally take that on. It's like, no, all of that stuff was like Greek philosophy, like, was already in there.
They already knew. And
yeah, and I even think I make the point, like here's what an actual science, like a prescient science, like if they had, like, the alpha constant or something, like there's no fucking way they could know this. They didn't have anything like that. So, like, the periodic table, because you even, like, give us the proton, like, just anything, right?
Yeah. Germ disease or anything? Like, come on. We talked about that all the time. Yeah, so you had firsthand knowledge of debating Muslims or several other people.
And I've done more since, yeah. But that was the big one that was, like, huge, yeah.
And you noticed that a lot of Christians also that you debate nice, then turn them to be dicks.
Yeah.
Then they're nice again.
Yeah. About 99%. Yeah.
Really?
There are some exceptions, but yeah, that was mostly the behavior.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Well, I'm doing a series. I'm going through the Quran piece by piece, episode by episode. I am saying episode by episode. Some of these episodes, believe it or not, connect. But if you don't highlight that part of it because it has its own like rooted past,
Yeah.
I may have to come back around and say, now look, here's bigger picture. All three of these mythic tropes, they connect to an overall thing.
Yeah.
But like right now, I'm starting with the sleepers of Ephesus, or the sleepers in the.
We were talking about this off camera.
Yeah. Then I'm going to be moving to other episodes, and then finally showing why even Muhammad in a cave with Gabriel is actually already a Jewish.
Man, it goes back to frickin' Zalmoxis.
It's like, oh yeah, right. Yeah, that's a powerful point, and there's so much here that I don't think they know about these details, and I think it's mostly behind critical scholarly positions. Like it's believe it or not, before MythVision even came in and like really, I think popularized much of what critical scholarship said.
Yeah.
Christianity's like been doing this critical thing, but like it has not been popularly known, and the average person has not even heard much of the stuff that's being argued.
Yeah.
And I know that that's the case for Islam.
Oh, especially, yeah. Islam is particularly worse. And I make this point in my primer is that one of the reasons why Islamic apologetics is so naive and like backwards is that because of the oppressive nature of many Islamic states, not all of them, but many of them, they have not like they're so keen on preventing criticism, right? They like blocking it, like getting rid of it, making no one see it or whatever, like Saudi Arabia blocking anti-Muslim sites, that they have no immunity. Right, they've cultivated no immunity to critique. Right, so they have these wild ideas to defend their faith, and they walk into like a room and defend them, and they're surrounded by like way more sophisticated skeptics who like fucking annihilate what they were saying, and it's like what? Like they're not prepared because they haven't been allowing dissenting voices.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at like Christianity, that's why I say Scope's monkey trial earlier. Like the level of debate for stuff was even more ridiculous in Answers in Genesis, and Answers in Genesis is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if you think like back then, it was worse. Like it was really dumb. But because we're in an open society, Christianity is ruthlessly critiqued and attacked for decades and decades and decades. They've had to build this defense mechanism against these arguments. And so Christian apologetics becomes more and more sophisticated.
Yeah.
Now, I've written actually that it's actually declined recently. It's kind of like, I don't know, feels like they've sort of like given up, and kind of like the last 10, 20 years of Christian apologetics is pretty crappy. Like it's almost as if they're going back, like reverting back to the crappy apologetics of the past. But there was a moment from like 1980 to about like, I'd say 2005 at least, right? Where they were getting very sophisticated. Like they understood, they knew in advance what the critiques will be, and so they pre-bunked them with their own, like they had a sophisticated mechanism. They knew how to use footnotes correctly to make it look like they're doing a sophisticated argument. So Christian apologetics got there because that it was so ruthlessly attacked that it had to defend itself.
Yeah.
Islam hasn't. Like it's been so thoroughly avoiding confronting critics that it's still stuck 100 years ago. Like it doesn't have, especially if you look at like the most famous books of Muslim creationists. There's a certain guy out of Turkey. There's a few others like these books that are just so bad. Like they're beyond that. There's nothing like even Michael Behe and Dembski would be looking at this and go, "Whoa, dude, that's pretty naive. You gotta up your game, man. This is really bad." And so that's the thing that you mostly deal with is this fact that you have mostly these naive emotional arguments that have lack experience with sophisticated critics, right? And that's kind of one of the things that I've noticed throughout my interactions with Muslim apologists is kind of distinctive. But it can be really hard to like, you can't just rag on them on that point,
Of course.
because they get completely annihilated and they just leave and go argue with someone else, right?
Yeah.
So you have to think in terms of what is an effective public critique, because your objective, I think, like the point is to get as many people out as possible So you're really not going to be focused on, and this is the same with Christianity. You're not focused on deconverting the apologists. You know, they're never going to move or change or anything.
No.
Every debate you do is for the audience. It's not for them, right?
Exactly.
So it's all about like the fence sitters and the waverers, like the people who are maybe devout but have never heard,
Never really considered.
right? Never heard this stuff before. They're like, oh, the point is to hit some people so they get the thing that starts the brainworm starts, right? And then they go, oh, and I've had so many examples of this, of like Christians come up to me later and say like, you know what? I heard a thing you said in a debate, and it shook me, and I couldn't believe it or whatever, and I tried to refute it, and anyway, within a year or two, I was out.
Yeah.
And it was like this one, you just have to have one or two things that they never heard before that they were kept from being allowed to hear, right?
Yeah.
And they hear that, and then that's how you get people out. And I've had Muslims come up to me and do the same thing. And I gave you the story earlier of that one surprising case where I wasn't even arguing against Islam, but it had the same effect. So the effect is there. It's just a small percentage, like 5-10% that you're going to get, and it's over years. You're not going to convert someone in one debate,
Right.
but you're going to lay the seed that's going to lead some of those people out. Like let's say 5% of them get out, and if that 5% is matched against a growth rate of 4%, you win in the long run. Like compound interest, eventually you win. It takes generations, but eventually, if you keep that up, like we win that argument in the long run.
I just hope more skeptics watching this will take the time to engage critically, understand that cognitive dissonance is going to play a significant role, and that being only mocking and completely disrespectful is not going to be helpful or useful.
Yeah.
And by the way, the people who are winning right now in terms of their arguing with Muslims, for the most part, are Christians right now. We are in the fray. We have, we are like we should be. And so I'm going to...
Well, there's a lot of ex-Muslims. So online, there's a lot of really good ex-Muslim critics of Islam.
Yes.
So you can go find. I linked to some in my primer, so you can go to people who want to dive into this. You can go to my primer. I talk about a lot of this, more than we've talked about here. A lot of useful advice. If you're going to go out there and interact and engage with Muslims, I give you a lot of good advice that will help you like be more effective.
Yeah. Well, make sure you go check out Dr. Carrier's article there. Also, stay tuned because I'm going to be doing a series that I don't think anyone's ever seen done this way in video format, and I hope you like it.